What's up, fellow D&D enthusiasts? Just wanted to talk a little bit about optimization and like thought processes on when you're coming to like endgame on a build, how to make it do what you want. So basically, when you build your toon, a lot of people just try and get a coverall for something that'll be useful in like, level 30 quests on hard to R1, maybe the odd raid or like farming low level quests and stuff to do that efficiently. So when you spread yourself like that, you're not going to be as good as at running things like maybe high Reaper content or harder raids, etc. Because you need to really focus on those things, like if you want to survive or you want to kill things efficiently, whatever you want to do. So that can kind of affect how you put your enhancement points in. So I'll tell you what I've done on my build at the moment. This is more of a coverall kind of enhancement setup. I wouldn't really want to be doing R10s because I'm missing a couple of things, but maybe this would work up to R6 because I've got past lives. But if you're a first life kind of character, the way I've set it up would be nice for like the odd R1 quest and only hard raids. And that's, as I said, that's the catch-all and kind of like an easy, basic, unoptimized kind of way to do your enhancement points. And the reason I say that is because, as you can see here, I've got all my points in the frenzy tree, and I have things like tantrum and the critical multiplier, which is obvious, and extra damage instead of healing on the raging blows. But the tantrum has like a trip kind of effect loaded into it. While it's a cleave, that is cool, but I like the trip effect for if I'm doing high reapers. But in reality, if I wanted to be doing like an R10 kind of quest, personally, I would probably drop my Vistani stuff, drop a lot of my Ravager stuff, and try and get something like No Mercy in the Falconry tree. And the Falconry tree also has more HP, so I'm going to stay alive a bit better. But this helpless damage here is kind of what I rely on to use with like a dire charge. Then everything is helpless, and I'm doing a lot of extra damage to helpless mobs. Now, there's also an argument that if you are in a good group, the helpless damage is negligible. What I'm talking about here is we're optimizing to do the most we can do without really relying on the team too much. But in reality, you will still rely on your team. So also, things like Slaughter here in the Ravager tree, this gives plus 10 weapon damage. And the reason that is critically important as an enhancement point is because when you stack that with like an Adrenaline Overload, which is almost a guaranteed crit with the Slaughter, you're going to do a lot of damage, especially in like high Reaper content. You want to be clearing things as fast as possible, or basically one-shotting a lot of the mobs. So on a helpless mob, if you have the No Mercy for your 30%, and you'd hit it with a Slaughter and an Adrenaline, often a lot mobs will die, and that's what you want. It's also effective on like Reapers, which can cause a lot of problems in high Reaper content. So yeah, that's kind of handy, but again, this is a bit of a catch-all enhancement set. As you can see, I've taken Barbarian Power Attack and Improved Power Attack. The thought process here is that if I'm doing like a hard to R1 raid, just doing as much damage as possible is good. But on the other end of the spectrum, if I wanted to put this build into, say, high Reaper content, I don't necessarily think that taking this Power Attack, these two enhancements for it, are worth it, because you lose a lot of to hit. And I know it probably doesn't seem like much, like 5 or 10 to hit doesn't seem like much, but in that high end content, missing a crit, it does hurt, and you want to make sure you are also hitting as much, because if you get like a grazing blow or whatever, you're not doing your full damage. So it's small little things like that. Removing those enhancement points and spending them somewhere else can kind of set your build off in a different direction to be more effective in a different part of the game. And I know I'm basically talking about like R1 questing to R10 questing, because that's basically what you do at cap. And another thing here, I've taken Sprint Boost, which is because it makes you move faster. I think a lot of people do take it, but another reason is if I am doing like some easy kind of content, you want to get through it faster, because efficiency is important. You don't want to waste your playtime unless you're into that roleplay shit. So I could, I guess an argument could be I could drop that Sprint Boost, maybe take Blood Tribute to get the extra little bit of HP if I was running harder content, and be moving slower for that harder content. But that's why, like I said, this is like a balanced kind of look at just trying to do from easy raids to maybe R6 questing. Alright? And obviously, if you are like on a first life turn, you're not going to have the 96 enhancement points. So what I would say in that case is to just probably drop a couple of the points out of the racial tree, drop a couple of points out of Ravager and Vistani, and basically focus on the frenzy tree and a little bit in this racial tree here. So obviously with the enhancement points, you can also move into your destiny points and your twists. Obviously for like a barbarian specifically, to optimize it for doing harder content and even easier content, you can just probably just jump in the Fury of the Wild tree. There's a lot in it that is handy, like Overwhelming Force trips things when you use Adrenaline. That's basically a little bit of CC. That's why I've taken that, but I've only taken up to tier 2. Things like this, I think it's Fury Eternal. You regain an Adrenaline use on a Vorpal, and with this you're also Vorpaling on a 19 to 20 somewhere. Your Bloodbath, you Vorpal on a 19 to 20. So what that means is, earlier I was talking about power attack enhancement being kind of bad because it might make you miss your crits, which means you don't confirm them, which means you will not get a use of Adrenaline back. So honestly, I've seen that if I'm running a precision-based character in Fury of the Wild, you can almost endlessly use your Adrenalines, which is pretty strong. But on the Barbarian, when I'm running it like this with all the power attack enhancements, and my to-hit suffers because of that, it takes a little bit longer for me to get my Adrenaline overloads back. So that kind of optimization there, not doing it correctly, kind of slows you down. So yeah, and also here I've got improved power attack, just for extra damage. Like that's cool. You wouldn't necessarily need to take that. A Dance of Flowers is for more damage, and also Legendary Tactics. So what these two things here are optimized just to do damage, right? They're not worrying about my defenses or my HP or my to hit. It's just for doing more damage, which, as I said, is handy in easier quests and easier raid difficulties. I've also got the Legendary Tactics here because, well, basically, I'm just going to try and land my tactics stuff in that easier content, you know? When you could, in reality, try and focus way more on your tactics DCs, or you could focus more on your damage, right? And also up here, I've taken the Martial Hymn and the Meld. Right, so Meld is obviously very powerful, and if you're running harder content, the argument is that it's 15 seconds of immortality, right? You get yourself into a sticky situation, hit Meld, and you're fine. It's extremely strong for that. It becomes strong in raids, and it is also quite strong in R10 content. But if you could drop that and go the other direction and just optimize for pure DPS, like we could get something out of maybe Grandmaster of Flowers, like Piercing Clarity, or you could get something like Standing with Stone for more HP. So that Meld into Darkness is just flexible, but you don't need to take it if you're optimizing in a certain direction. And also here I've got Martial Hymn, and the reason for this, it gives you some strength and melee power. So that's just damage. That's not a defensive kind of thing. That's just for doing more damage. So I would almost take that all the time if you were doing R10 content. But if you just wanted to do, I don't know, something easier, there's a couple other things you could take, right? You could probably take, I don't know, I think I might have actually been lying, and there's nothing better than taking Martial Hymn, to be honest. Yeah, so that was a bit of a lie. Maybe Martial Hymn just is the best if you're on this kind of character. But it's just about thinking of what you really want to do and what it's going to make that easy for you to complete, or how you're going to have the most impact in, you know, that kind of scenario. So I'll go into some other options more of how to like stay alive. All right, so what I've done to try and give you an example of not being specifically optimized at all and just doing whatever you want in the build is I've gone all my points into the Occult Slayer tree, which is basically low DPS, quite tanky, a little bit in Ravager, a little bit in Vistani Knife Fighter, and fucking the rest in the Racial trade, like whatever, no power attack enhancement. So I'm just a big blob of HP that doesn't do much damage. So let's see how it goes in just a basic hard raid scenario, right? You'll notice the DPS is lower because I haven't focused on it, and all these small little bonuses that you do or don't take affect how your build performs, right? So let's check that shit out. Fat Rage, got a balmy 3.5k HP here. Waiting for the other tank to go. There he goes. Waiting for the Orthos to come down. Gonna intune this one. Go over here, got this one. Go. There we go, we're just a big chunk of HP, boys. Just awesome. Killing stuff, not doing much damage. Still running in Fury. There you go, so we're doing 1400 first number instead of like the 1800 to 2400 we were doing when we were playing in the Berserker tree, right? It's a large difference. I know all the enhancements are like +1 here, +1 there. Doesn't seem like it does as much to affect the build, but like it does. The game is a game of inches. All the little small changes you make kind of compound on each other and will affect things in big ways, basically. So that's why even for a caster, you probably want to get like the +1 here, +1 over there, a +2 if you can get it. Like it all adds up, and that's basically what the game's about. That's how you optimize. Just like really hone in on what you're trying to do, and just like build from there. So if you have any questions, like, you know, I'm obviously the best person to ask now that I'm Sarlona's second most prolific YouTuber. So I'll see you on the next video. Boom.